to continue, people are interested in the issue of homosexuality and whether it's evil, whether it's good. The issue with homosexuality is that it exists in the second third. Now, whether people who indulge in the practice of homosexuality or what have you, they may not want to accept it, but they have the will and the right to do whatever they want to do. No one has a right to tell any other living being or soul what to do in the second third of the realm, because that's their opportunity to express their will, and you should not impose your will upon their will. If two people come together and they want to be active in this way or do this or do or participate in this or that or the other thing, that's where their agreement is, and no one should intrude upon that. Now, the issue is whether you agree with it. Now, I personally have my own beliefs other than that. Now, my beliefs are sustained in the first third of the equation. I don't have to visit the second third of the equation because it doesn't deal with my values, because I choose to exist in the first third of the equation. Where, on the other hand, uh, the issue of homosexuality or what have you deals with the second third of the equation. And the second third of the equation have nothing to do with the first third of the equation. They're two totally different. It's night and day. It's black and white. So they don't have anything to do with it. And when people who choose to function in the second third as opposed to the first third, when they're talking about God and they're talking about religion or what have you, they're talking about the circumcision, the circumcised, the God, that the 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 being, the event, the will that they have to create and not be submissive to the sovereignty of the first third. This is all this is about. It has nothing to do. They have a right to their will and their preferences, just like someone has a right and a will to their preferences. Now, the problem that I do see is that uh, in the homosexual community, they actually try to convince uh, people that don't agree with them to accept their will, or somehow infuse their beliefs into the first third, which they can't. And it doesn't matter how uh, much a person from the first third attempts to infuse their will on someone from the second third, or someone from the second third try to infuse their will on the first third. It doesn't work. It will never work, because the dark is the dark and the light is the light, and there's no gray. The only gray that exists is in the politics, and politics exists in the second third. There is no politic in the first third, because the first third is a sovereign. It's a it's a dictatorship, so to speak. So when we get to exactly how the second third comes apart, now the second third is actually precludes the third third. It's in the middle of the eventuality of what was and what is. So when you look at how the third third comes back into being, that circle, that line, that plane, that where you have the first third, which is uh, light, and then you have the second third, which is dark, and then you have the third third, which is light. And the amazing thing about it is, when you say it in the physical, where we actually exist in this realm, it's light, night, and then light. But when you are in the inverse, it's night, light, night, and that's the best part of it all, because it goes all the way back to the beginning. And if you go all the way back to the beginning, where you have the Israelites versus the non-Israelites, or the chosen versus the non-chosen, it goes all the way back to that section. It goes back to the locks in the hair and the customs. It goes back to England and the Queen or the King of England taking the wealth from Ethiopia and the African nations and the scepter and all these things, and harvesting them out of Africa. It goes from the invasion of the Netherlands and the Danish and all these other people to South Africa, and infusing and implementing apartheid. It goes to the 18th century, even before that, where you have the Rothschilds and all the other people that are involved in the families that are involved in the New World Order and secret societies that they speak of. So as we get to the end of which is the third, when we get to the end, you have you the genius and the most amazing thing about it is that the ushering in of the end actually is also dictated by the will of the people. The second third of the equation ends because the second third actually willed the third to come on in, so to speak. So basically, the second third bowed down to the third. Now you might ask yourself, why would the so-called dark give up its reign to the light? Doesn't the dark want to be the dark, or doesn't the light want to be the light? Yes. But the principles of the so-called the people of the dark, or the people that work the wickedness, is that they have no principles. They're thieves. They're murderers. They're liars. They're every abominable thing on the earth. So the only way, in order for them to end their reign, is to have them use their own devices to end their reign. And one of their own devices is thievery. And what happened actually is they stole urban, and they supplanted it, implanted it into the New York Stock Exchange trade market through Urban Outfitters, and thus it's written that not only will I will come as a thief in the night. So even their prophecy, even their even their words that are written that says that the Creator will come as a thief in the night, which means he will be invited, because the Creator is not a thief. He will come as a thief. So the thief actually steals the Creator and brings the Creator along with him, and brings him into this home, invited, and boom, when he opens up what he has there, which is urban for you, it isn't what he think it is, and it's too late. That's the end. So as we take a break, I'll come back with the next segment, and thank you once again for signing on. Now, as we continue, I know a lot of people had read my opinion on Catholicism or Pope. Um, my criticism had to do more with uh, the Pope's affiliation with the Nazi Party than it did with him as a person. I didn't. I had nothing to say about him as being, the article went on to that I was opinioning. that it said that he was somehow kidnapped into or forced or bullied into being a Nazi or whatever. Well, I didn't get into that. All I said was he was in a Nazi uniform, and he was, even when he was not in the Nazi uniform, he was in the the priestly garb, and he was given the Heil Hitler sign, and that's what that was about. So now, recently, I haven't written about it since then, but since just yesterday, recently, he's resigned. Now, my thing is, people were taking offense at the fact that I said what I said in my op-ed, but to for me and other people who take uh, the sovereignty of God seriously, I take offense to anyone calling themselves holy. Uh, that 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 word holy, it signifies creator, and I don't think anyone walking around on earth subject to the principles of this dimension of being in the second third of the equation should uh, have the title holy anywhere within it. And if anybody should come to you saying that you should run in the other direction, because it's blasphemous to me, in my opinion. Now, to other people, they may not think so, but as I heard the news of the resignation, my thing is, what holy, or what person who would put himself on that standard would give such a position up? Because believe it or not, God, the Creator, is not giving up His sovereignty. So this should open up the eyes of people who are not only viewing the faith, but who are in the faith, and start thinking what is actually going on. Not only what's going on in the visible on the TV screen, but what's going on behind the scenes, and what's transitioning, and they should start considering, the different policies that are going to be implemented, and who is going to be chosen to implement these policies. This is more what it's about to me than it has to do with anything else. And I don't take any offense to anyone saying that uh, the sovereignty of God doesn't exist, or those that to believe that they exist within their own will and their own being. And as it said, they'd rather be their own gods in hell than to serve uh, God in heaven. So uh, we could leave it at that. And as far as the Obama situation as it relates to this, as I stated before, I think that the next few years are going to be okay, but it's not going to be it's not going to be more than another 2 or 3 years of times like this. Within the next few years, everything's going to, take a turn. So for those who are established in the second third of creation, that's fine, if that's where you want to be. But if if you're if you're a minister of a church, or if you're somebody who's calling yourself to uh, to the ministries, and you're supposed to be a beacon of light, then